Hey, you know, being being bipolar has its advantages. Um, I walk around, and have little dialogues in my head. Only with being manic like this, they're much more intense and they go on for a longer period of time. And I was thinking today, how do we end up as this pickle? This pickle, when it comes to credit, we get notices in the mail that our credit is the interest rate is going up to like 20% to 25%, whatever, And then I started realizing, the government is just like the mafia, only 1,000 times worse and much more insidious. And I'll tell you why in a second. But we're like little pickles. How do we get into this pickle? We're like little pickles in like a pickle barrel. We're all crammed in here, most people, and being on the bottom rung of the pyramid, the worst happens, to us. And before I tell you what my thinking is, and myself, I am not a protester. I am not somebody that walks around blaming the world for troubles. I'm not built that way. Like Phil Oakes. Phil Oakes was a folk singer, and he started off singing protest songs. And then gradually the protest songs he put behind him, and he started coming out with these incredibly lyrical, beautiful songs and albums. He totally abandoned that way of thinking, and that's the way I feel. I'm like Hyman Roth in The Godfather 2. I'm just a businessman living on a pension, trying to get by in this world. But I got to thinking about the conditions that we live in and under, and what's the origin of it? How come we get notices from the bank that our interest rates are going up? Well, to answer that, we first must understand that there's no ideal system. I mean, you got communism over here, you got capitalism over here. Neither one are desirable. Someplace in the middle might be nice, but it doesn't exist. But the conditions that we live under, we're under someone's thumb. And whose thumb are we under? Well, we're under the bank's thumb. How did it get that way? How did we wind up like this? Well, perhaps one explanation that I was thinking of today is to examine the origins of the banking system, the contemporary banking system in the United States, which manifested early part of the 20th century, 1913, 1920, somewhere around there. And it's very clever what happened. There was a consortium of European bankers and American legislators, congresspeople, that met clandestinely under the cover of darkness on an island off of Georgia, Jekyll Island. Now, let me preface also by saying this is all historical fact. I'm not making stuff up. I'm not kind of like some wild protester. But they met on Jekyll Island, and they put together a plan. And the plan was this: to create an entity to administer the tithing of the masses, and a collection agency. Basically, it's a collection agency to collect the money that is dunned to the population. And what were these entities that were established? They thought of something very clever. This was extremely clever and genius. They came up with this name, the Federal Reserve. It just connotates, the government and authority. And they came up with the IRS to collect the money in order to put into the Federal Reserve, in order to distribute to these interests, the banking interests. Now, we do not live in an altruistic world. We don't live in a giving world. We live in a self-serving world that wants to collect as much as possible. And they formed this, and it was passed, this legislation to form these entities was passed Christmas Eve in 2015, I don't know, 1915, 1920, I don't know. But the legislation was passed. And then we had established the Federal Reserve and the IRS. Now, I'm not speaking with emotion here. I'm like a English professor, a business economic professor, talking about these things. I have these are facts. I'm not emotional about it, other than my own, manic state, But at any rate, it passed, and what we have today is a continuation of a system that was inaugurated that was successful beyond anybody's dreams. This is an extraordinary thing that happened. And it continues today with the fact that who has the power? You know, the banks have the power. The banks have it. You can look at it this way, that the feudal system in Europe, all those centuries, Middle Ages onwards, the feudal system still exists today. You are tithed in order to survive. And the money, where does the money go? Well, it goes to the government. That's why the U.S. government, you know, in some ways, you know, went into business with these banks all those years ago. And that's what the origin is of the way we live today. I appreciate you listening to my little rant. And take care, stay well, and keep your head above the water, you know.